I'd like to introduce Robert Selliah from the American MedChem Nonprofit Corporation. He's going to do a 20-minute science brief. So, Robert, welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy, for the introduction. I noticed that my bio is not found in the book. So I'm a drug discovery R&D professional with 18 years of experience in pharmaceutical and biotech startups. And so that's the experience that I bring to this project. I'm going to tell you a little bit about American MedChem Nonprofit Corporation. We are based in Salt Lake City, Utah. You might wonder what Bill Cosby has got to do with rare diseases. But you know, this statement is true for every one of us here. We all started off as children. We survived childhood. We were not struck down by a rare childhood disease for which there was no medicine. So we are here now, adults, grown-ups. When we look back at children who are very sick with these diseases, what do we do? What do we feel? I remind myself constantly of a Chinese language proverb which says, talk does not cook rice. Talk does not cook rice. Right? We need action. Right? 7,000 rare diseases, 20 million children in the US alone with some form of rare disease, for most of which there is no medicine. In fact, the medicines we give to children these days for some of the diseases were not meant for children. Right? How do we, as a community, address this problem? Now, what is the solution? And I come at it from, we need targeted therapies for children, just like we make targeted therapies for adults. Right? There are some fantastic medicines for adults out there because research efforts go into producing these medicines. The same sort of process that goes into making medicine for adults also goes into making medicines for children. That's what we want to tap into and focus on children's medicine and provide children with good medicines, right? So I want to share this story with you about American MedChem as a non-profit organization. And not only do I want to share it with you, I want to invite you to participate in this work. We are a non-profit, so it's open to the community. And we have heard a lot of conversations about collaborations. So as you listen in, think about ways in which you can participate in this work. So what are the drivers for drug discovery R&D for any disease? Here I have listed 5 of them. And if you look at childhood rare diseases, the needs are there, the demand is there. We are all here because we want cures for our children. Right? The technology is there, right? As well as talent. There's one problem which everybody will recognize, profitability. Right? So how do you address this? I mean, given that small patient populations for children, these projects don't become attractive top-line projects at biotechs and pharmaceutical companies. Fair enough, their business model is different. Can we think outside the box and come up with a system, a method to address this problem that we have, right? And that's answer to that question, can we actually step outside the box, comes from a teaching that was given to us nearly 60 years ago by George W. Merck, who said medicines are for the people, it's not for the profits. And profits will come, he goes on to say, but the focus has to be on the people. In our case, focus on the children, right? So we can do this work. Recently I gave a talk and a woman approached me and she said, you know, Robert, most things we do in life have no basis on financial return on investment, like taking care of children. She just said that, and I related that to this, what George W. Merck left us 60 years ago. Same truth, right? So if we can park the profit motives a little bit and be driven by altruism, we can do this work. And that is how American MedChem was born, as a 501c3 nonprofit drug discovery organization, a public charity. Social enterprise, if you want to call it that way. It's a business model that works, and we want to make it work. Mission is very straightforward, simple, right? To discover, develop, and provide, operative word, medicines for children with rare neglected diseases. So that's our focus. And if you look at the essential nature of this work, only systematic drug discovery R&D produces new drugs, right? So we want to do this work and provide the medicines for children. How are we going to do this? That's the next big question, right? So you can have talk doesn't cook rice. How do we actually go about doing this? There is a lot of information on this slide, so I'm just take a little bit extra time and walk you through it. This process diagram is typical for a drug discovery and development process in pharmaceutical biotech area, right? The big arrow here is sort of a big umbrella. Like in a pharmaceutical company, all the talents and skills would be under one roof. But each of these colored boxes is a very specific skill set. Even in pharmaceutical companies, there are groups which specialize in various things. Biology discovery, chemistry discovery, preclinical development, clinical development, then manufacturing and marketing or distribution, right? But the thing is, all these skills sets are available outside where we can gather them together under a collaborative umbrella and do this work. If you look a little bit deeper here, the biology research happens mostly in academics and institutes, right? Faculty members who are committed to rare childhood diseases, they go out, find the genes, find the targets, set up assays, they have access to what's called high-throughput screening. They do all that work. And then what happens to all that information? And this work is usually publicly funded, right? What happens to all that information? They write a paper and maybe shelve it, right? Give a couple of talks and they shelve it. Because there is no provision for them, there is no facility for them to carry this project all the way to the clinic. Because for a common disease, say for obesity, for example, if a faculty member in a research institute finds a target, they will go to their tech transfer office, find venture money or angel money, start a biotech, do the drug discovery work, and sell the company or sell the assets to pharma or take the drug all the way, right? But for a faculty member who's doing target identification biology research for, say, 300 children, there's no way this person can get funded through venture capital or angel, right, money to actually carry it forward. This is where we come in. I call this the gap. And we fill this gap because we will collaborate with these faculty members here who are the experts in the underlying biology of these diseases. And we'll do the drug discovery work. So as I said, talent is there. And we'll apply all the rigors of technology for drug discovery, all the timelines that we need to make, because time is of the essence, right? And do good science and find the drugs. This preclinical development part is available. I mean, I can name people, but we can bring them in as partners in our work, or simply write grants and they can run these programs. Clinical development on the right-hand side is available. Investigator-initiated clinical trials is one of the fastest way for us to get compounds into the clinic, right? Peter Adamson, who's an advisor to AMC, he's chair of the Children's Oncology Group. And he said, Robert, when you bring a clinical candidate up for pediatric cancer, just bring it to us. Children's Oncology Group, we are funded through NCI. We'll run clinical trials all over the world. So I don't have to go and fundraise to do clinical trials, right? Another thing that I want to point out is that we will also talk to, approach, and invite biotech and pharmaceutical companies to partner with us because they have the skills, they have the know-how to manufacture and also do clinical trials. There's something called the Creating Hope Act, which is a great incentive for pharmaceutical companies and biotechs to participate. And there are biotech companies who are putting out drugs for childhood rare diseases. So when we bring programs up this way with added value, I think we can attract some of partners from the biotech and the pharmaceutical companies to carry the ball forward all the way and distribute these drugs, right? So that's sort of the model. This work has been called by bad names. The Valley of Death is one of them, and I dislike it. I'm sorry, it's not a pet peeve. But if you are my employer and you come and tell me, Robert, come and work in this project that I'm calling Valley of Death, I have no motivation, okay? Honestly. I like to call it the Valley of Serendipity. It really is serendipitous. George W. Merck talked about it too, right? We do a lot of work thinking that we are going to find something, but find lots of different things in the process. Right. That's the exciting part. You get into this valley of serendipity and do the work. Serendipity helps you to find drugs. Right. That's one of the things I want to get out here. So I tweet about this valley of death business. It's a winning proposition. I like to make checklists. If you look at it, when you put drugs out there and kids get it and they feel well, kids benefit, parents and communities benefit. Basic research, these faculty members who are doing cutting-edge research in genetics, they benefit. They are motivated now to go and do more of similar type of work. Pharma ecosystem will benefit if pharma biotech partners with us. It's great PR for them to say, hey, we were partners in getting a compound out there, a drug out there for children, right? And we benefit because we can keep doing this work over and over again. Timelines, right? We mentioned timelines. Kalydeco is a great example of personalized medicine for cystic fibrosis, right? If you just look at the timelines, 1989, when Francis Collins and his group discovered the CFTR gene. 2000 was first when the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation found a partner in Aurora Biosciences, which became Vertex later on, to do the drug discovery work, the stuff that I'm talking about, right? 11 years. I don't know what happened in that 11 years. And 2012 is when the drug comes out, right? I think we can cut down this timeline, especially with genetics driving discoveries in rare disease biology. We should be able to very quickly, from gene discovery to start of drug discovery. I can't give a timeline, but if we start talking to faculty members early, we can actually initiate AMC's partnership to pick up a project, write for grants, and start the drug discovery work, right? So we need to pay attention to how do we shorten this timeline to get drugs out there. September is Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, right? I think we should remember that. Here are some numbers for pediatric cancer. I didn't know anything about pediatric cancer until I started working with American MedChem, right? Numbers are staggering. The largest, leading cause of death by a disease for children in the United States, right? Only after accidental death. Diagnosis numbers. When I came to this item, 250 children die each day worldwide from pediatric cancer. And I was like, what's the context? Now, how do you think of 250 children dying every day all over the world? And at the same time, this flight MH370, which went missing, remember, with 249 passengers? And I thought, wow, that is like a plane full of kids going missing every day. If you go look at flight MH370 story, which 24/7 news kind of bombarded us with every bit of detail of what happened, we don't talk about pediatric cancer that way. Right? And the amount of resources that we put into it, the amount of effort, global collaboration to find the remains of this plane so that we can comfort these families that lost these people. Yes, it's tragic. This is tragic also, right? So in our awareness raising work, let's remember, there are children who are dying that we have to pay attention to when we feel low energy, let us remember 250 children, right? At least in cancer. Our first collaborative project is going to be with Newmer Center for Childhood Cancer Research in Delaware. These guys, a group of 6 faculty members who are doing some excellent work in pediatric cancer. That's all they focus on. That's all they work on, right? And it turns out they're working on a rare leukemia which causes death of 300 children, infants actually, every year. They found a target. It's a very, very tractable target. They are doing high-throughput screening now, and we'll pick up the ball where they leave off. So at the end of high-throughput screening, what they'll have are prototype compounds, which are not drugs yet, but we make them. AMC's work makes them into drug candidates, right? a generous grant has been offered. I mean, I still don't have a brick to show for AMC, but a generous grant has come through from the Andrew McDonough B Positive Foundation. Joe McDonough lost his son, Andrew, to leukemia, and he is fundraising, is determined to make a difference in the leukemia space, right? So he approached us and said, in principle, meaning if the biology works out and we are ready to go, the money will come. It's a smallish grant, $150,000, but that's a great start for us. And we plan to kick off research project next year, Q2, Q3 timeframe, right? As I said, you can help, you can participate. We are a nonprofit 501c3. Don't be misled by seed funds. It sounds like a venture capital term, but really it's a startup money, right? Just to get our labs organized. I mean, I'm actually planning to sublease space, right? Existing space, and we'll get in there and use some of the equipment, buy some equipment, hire some scientists, and start work, right? We're also seeking out drug discovery collaborations. I'm talking to many, many groups in universities who are interested in working with us. I mean, people are in fact seeking AMC out to talk about potential of working, right? And how you can help also is to get the word out. I mean, social media, I mean, if there's a large community that's concerned about children's health, we should get together and work on it. Last slide, Gabriella Miller died last year of a brain tumor. She left us a teaching, right? I call her my teacher, and my personal commitment is to fulfill her vision. She said, that you would, even if I go, all the people will carry on with the war. I think the war she meant was drug discovery, right? And they're going to win this war, she says. So, thank you. I'll end with that. Yes, questions? Yeah?
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I'll just yell. There's so much information from drug trials, failed drug trials, data that just lies on the shelves you mentioned. How can you utilize those, reutilize that information to push forward the research that's needed?
Yes. Good question. I mean, see, if adult clinical trials happen first, and then there are incentives for the companies to try on pediatrics, right? If the compound has failed in adult clinical trials, and we have a feeling that the target that we're working on is close or similar, we could go and request them to share the data with us. They may not share the clinical data with us, but they might. It's a tax break for a pharma company to say, here, take these assets and do it for children, right? They can value it somehow and take a tax break. We're a 501c3 public charity. So that would be a useful way to approach, as long as we know what the biological target we are working on. If it's somewhat close, I mean, using our knowledge, we may be able to approach some companies, biotechs, to share information. It's doable.
Structure for getting the data.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned up there when you were speaking, like, for rare genetic, maybe 350 patients or less. Now, our organization, we have 350 patients in the United States, and there's been drugs that have been found, but we can't get them past the FDA, even on rare genetic, for FDA fast track. So what are going to be the hurdles to try to get some of those drugs passed through the FDA if there's not enough people to try that drug on?
So the clinical network is going to be very important for rare genetic diseases, right? Because if I may just jump to pediatric cancer, they're very well organized. The Children's Oncology Group is a well-organized clinical trials platform. So they work closely with the FDA. When AMC brings a drug candidate forward, we qualify it for regulatory, which means these compounds can get into patients, right? Ready for testing in patients. But then I take it to Peter Adamson's group and Children's Oncology Group and hand it over. They write out the clinical plans and figure out how to do the clinical trials. So even for 300 children with a particular form of pediatric cancer, they are able to run those clinical trials. So it's doable, but I don't know whether in your case you have the network to support you. We won't be doing clinical trials.
But you have the avenues to.
Yes. So we go and embrace and collaborate.
So put our doctors in touch with you to see.
Yes. I mean, if you bring a program forward, yeah. They have to build their network so that they can gather the patients enough and get approvals. Because if there's a genetic test along with the drug test, where we can, what's personalized medicine, identify the patient population and treat them with the exact drug, what I call targeted therapies, personalized medicine. I think that's the way things are evolving. So, there's Matt Might here, I talked to, 17 children are known. How do we do clinical trials for 17 children? We should be able to, if you have a drug, right? So there's a push-pull mechanism. We pull projects out and kind of push it into the clinical pipeline, and people will take notice and change the ways they think. We don't know how they'll change, but they'll have to. FDA has to evolve also.